Welcome to episode 3 of Our Financial Wellness Journey. The purpose of this series is to show you that I'm not just some guy on the internet telling you how to manage your money. I want to show you that I too am trying to practice exactly what I preach. And in this series, I plan on telling you every single month what's happening with our money and doing it all while earning less than $60,000 a year. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Financial Wellness Planning. My name is Derek Coffey, and I'm the founder of FWP. And before we get into our finances for the month of May, there is a disclaimer that I want to give you that I've given in the previous episodes. First, this series is not meant to be a brag on being able to live on less than $60,000 a year. My wife and I are very fortunate, and there are extenuating circumstances that allow us to live on such little income. The first of which is the home that we live in. We live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home that we purchased in 2018 for $125,000. Because of that timing, we didn't overpay for our home, and we were also able to lock in a 3.5% interest rate on our mortgage. The second extenuating circumstance is the business that we own. My wife and I own a coffee shop in our local community, and one of the perks of owning the shop is that we sell food. Because we sell food, we're able to eat the food that we sell, and this helps keep our grocery bill in check. So I want you to keep in mind that I am not taking our situation for granted. There are a lot of things that work in our favor. But again, what I want you to know is that I am trying to live by the same principles that I tell everyone else they should live by. So the first thing that we're going to get into is our spending for the month of May. And the purpose of this sheet is to show me where our money came from and where our money went. That way we can ensure that our money is going where it needs to go. Or if it's going somewhere where it shouldn't, we can plug those leaks. So the first thing you'll notice is the income that we had for the month, and this is laid out as net income, meaning what we received after taxes. So from our business, we brought in $4,410 for the month. We also get $171 from Veterans Affairs as a small disability check from when I was in the military. And that brings our total net pay to $4,582. As we get into our spending, we're going to start with needs. And our needs spending for the month was just over $3,000. And when it comes to budgeting and getting people started on the right financial path, I try to get them to have their needs-based spending around 70%. So for the month of May, we did pretty well. We came in at just over 67% for our needs-based spending. But as I stated earlier, our mortgage for the month is $650. Our phone bill, we have T-Mobile, was $261. Our streaming came in at $61 for the month, and this was actually a decrease from the month of April. When I was reviewing our streaming services, I realized that one of them, we weren't using over half of the channels that were available to us. So I cut it in half and was able to save right at $15 a month by making that adjustment. For our debt, we have $525 a month that goes towards a land loan that we have on a piece of property that we hope to build on in the future. We also have $129 a month that goes towards medical bills from having our son. Our auto insurance for the month was $113, and that was a little high because we had to get a new policy and we had to make 2 months payment up front. So I expect that to go down at least by 50% going into June. Electric for the month was $120. It's a little higher than the $100 that I typically budget for, but with it being a little bit warmer, the AC runs a little bit more. Fuel for vehicles came in at $132.50. That's normal. Groceries, $530, and that's a little bit higher than what we've been paying in the past, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that we eat more at home, more now than we ever have. We used to go out to eat all the time, so switching to eating at home, it does drive up those costs. I have a life insurance policy that cost me $102.36 a month, and that's for a $300,000 term. That was a 30-year term. I'm about 4 years into it, so I have about 26 years left on that term policy. Health insurance is $79.28 for the month, and this is a healthcare.gov policy that covers my wife and my son. I get health insurance through the VA, so that's a cost that I don't have to incur. Our other needs-based spending for the month came in a little high. It came in just over $370, but a lot of that was made up of doctor visits for my wife and my son, and also a prescription that my wife takes. So it was a little high for the month, but I do anticipate that coming down a little bit. Our savings for the month was $500, and this is $500 that we put into Roth IRAs for my wife and myself. And it's $250 a month. We have $125 that comes out twice a month that goes into each of our accounts. So when it comes to helping people get right with their money, we allocate the 70% to needs-based spending, but the other 30% we split in half. 15% of that is meant for savings, and the other 15% is meant for spending on whatever you want to spend it on. So for our situation, we only put away 11% for the month of May. It is low, but currently with our financial situation, that's the only thing that fits. But if we wanted to fit this into that 70-15-15 system, we need to increase our savings by about $170 per month. Our miscellaneous spending for the month was really good. We only spent $403. Some of that was going out to eat. Some of that was going out to do things we enjoy, but we were able to keep miscellaneous spending to under 10%. So once we take into account our spending for the month and the income that we received, we had $604 left over as a surplus. Now, I'm not going to use that for anything specifically. I'm going to leave it in the checking account. And the reason that is because we have property taxes that are going to be due in the coming months. So leaving some surplus of money in that checking account is going to help us cover those taxes when we receive the bill. The next section that we're going to go over are those investment accounts that we have, and we have 2 Roths. Again, we're putting $250 a month into each of those, and at the end of May, I had just a little over $17,000 in my account, and my wife had just over $26,000 in hers. And this was a welcome surprise because in the month of April, the market had a rough month. So in May, there was a slight recovery, and it helped those numbers go up a little bit. Now, if we look at how those factor into our net worth, we have approximately $5,000 in savings, and this cash is just sitting aside in the event we experience an emergency. If we add to that those 2 Roth IRAs, our total assets are $48,000. Now keep in mind there are other assets that we have that could be included, but I don't. The first of which is the business. Our business is worth something, I just don't know what it is. So since I don't know an accurate figure, I'm not going to calculate it in. Also, our house is worth something. I don't know what that number is exactly, so I'm not going to factor that in. The other thing to keep in mind about the business and the house is that we can only realize those actual values if we sell. So factoring it into our liquid net worth doesn't make a whole lot of sense at this point. The way our liabilities break out, we have $59,000 on the land loan that we referenced earlier. I have $2,100 left on those medical bills for having my son. The interest rates on those are fine, especially on those medical bills, it's at 0%, so I'm in no hurry to pay those off. If we factor in the mortgage that we have remaining on the house, which is just under $113,000, our current liabilities are currently $174,272. If we subtract those liabilities from our assets, our total liquid net worth at this moment is $126,000. The next thing we're going to go over is our emergency fund, and the sheet that you're looking at is the emergency fund estimator. And there is a free version of these sheets on my website. I'll put the link in the description of this video. But on this sheet, it's meant to help calculate how much you should have set aside in your emergency fund. And there are 3 questions that you need to answer yes or no to. First of which is how old you are. Second is how in demand is your job. And third, how steady is your paycheck. For us, we're younger than 50, so the answer to that is yes. I answer yes to unstable and low demand simply because we are self-employed, which means you're unemployed every single day unless you make money. Finally, our paychecks are fairly steady and secure. We've been in business over 7 years now, so we feel pretty comfortable with the amount of money we take out. So if we answer all of these questions, our income multiple for our emergency fund is 6 months. And this equates to $27,500, at least based on the wages that we earned in May. We have $5,000 set aside in our own personal savings, and that leaves us a deficit of $22,500. Now, we do have savings within the business that kind of acts as an extended emergency fund if we need it. Now, the money that's in the business account is meant for the business, but if we run into hard times, we can always pull it if we need to. The next thing that we're going to go over is our life insurance situation. And in the month of April, I actually forgot about this section altogether, so I apologize for that. But the way that I look at life insurance is you have whole life and term life insurance. Yes, there are other policies, but for the majority of you, they're not going to apply. The purpose of life insurance is to protect you from an untimely death, meaning you pass away much younger than what you had anticipated. Well, with a whole life insurance policy, you should have enough coverage to dispose of your body the way that you wish. For me, I have a $50,000 whole life policy, and that should take care of all of my final expenses. Now, when it comes to term life, there are two ways to go about getting your term coverage. The first of which is to have enough coverage to pay off your debt. I have a $300,000 term policy, which for our debt situation of 174, that's going to leave my wife about $130,000 in the event that I pass away before that term is up. The second option when it comes to term life insurance is to get enough coverage to replace your income for a certain period of time. Now, we don't have enough coverage to replace the income that we're currently receiving, but if we were to go try to find the coverage that we would need just over $1 million to replace 20 years of the income we receive from the coffee shop. And the way we figured that up is we take our net income that we receive for the month, we multiply that by 12. That gives us our annual amount. Then we multiply that by the number of years that we would want to replace that income. So in our case, we just had our son 2 years ago. I would want to make sure that there's enough income to get him to adulthood. So a 20-year term policy is what's going to make the most sense. But as it stands, we do have $300,000 of coverage, and I do know that it's enough to pay off any debts that I would leave my wife in the event that I passed away earlier than expected. The final thing that we're going to go over is where we stand when it comes to our retirement savings. So this sheet is what I refer to as the income replacement estimator. And the reason I call it that is because when it comes to planning for retirement, you need to determine how much of your income you want to replace when you retire. And there are two trains of thought, 70% or 50% of your final income. 70% is going to be more applicable if you have debt that you anticipate carrying with you into retirement. 50% is going to be more applicable if you have no debt that you carry with you into retirement. And based on the way that we live, I'm anticipating not having any debt that we carry with us into retirement. So our goal is to replace 50% of our final gross salary. To figure out what our final gross salary would be, we use this estimator. So our current salary is $55,000. We're going to assume a 3% cost of living adjustment just to keep it up with inflation. We're 35 currently. We're actually 34. We'll turn 35 in the next couple of months. And we plan to retire at 65. Ideally, it's going to be sooner than that, but the way things are currently, it's going to be 65. So our final salary at age 65, adjusted for inflation, would be $133,500. So if we anticipate needing to replace 50% of our final gross salary, we're going to need just under $1.7 million set aside to produce that income. Now, I'm not going to factor in Social Security because we're way too young and it's way too far into the future. Neither one of us are eligible for pension, so that's not going to matter either. But if we take into account what we have saved currently, which is just over $43,000, as well as the $500 a month that we're putting into the account, we're $407 shy each month of hitting our retirement goal. Now, it's not something we can fit into our situation currently, but it is something that we're working on. And I'm actually going to go over that next. So our finances are broken down as simple as you can get them, and it doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room to enjoy life. We work hard for our money. We take on a lot of stress by owning a business. So being able to live a little bit more than what we are currently is kind of the next goal. Now, the only way to do that is to make more money. And it just so happens that over the last 3 years, we have taken out the exact same amount of money from our business. We haven't given ourselves a raise. A lot of that had to do with an expansion that we did that cost us about $60,000, and we wanted to shore up the company's finances. So now that those finances are more in order and we're more comfortable with where things are, we think it's time to give ourselves a raise. So that's what we're going to do. And I know not everybody has that luxury, but you could literally go ask your boss for a raise. And if they don't want to work with you, then look for another job. But for us, we can't really leave our job that easy, so we're just going to ask the boss for more money. What we're going to do to keep ourselves under that $60,000 a year limit is we're going to increase our pay by $2,000 a year, or $167 a month. And I know that's not really life-changing for us or anyone else really, but it does give us a little bit more room to breathe. Cutting our finances down to where they are sucks. Like, there are things that we want to do and we're just not able to do them because we don't have a lot of wiggle room. So by increasing our net income by maybe $150 a month because of that raise, it's going to allow us to breathe a little bit better. Now, there was one thing that I did wrong and I should have looked at it sooner, but our withholdings weren't set up properly. In 2023, I brought in a decent amount of income from my consulting business, from FWP. With that, we withheld extra money from the money we received from the coffee shop. Now, in 2024, there isn't a whole lot of money that's coming in at the moment. So, because of that, we changed those withholdings from the money we received from the coffee shop. Making that change, as well as increasing our pay by $167 a month, is actually a net income benefit of $270. So, with that $270, we're going to split it in half. We're going to put half of it into savings and we're going to enjoy the other half. We're going to go out to eat a little bit more. We're going to go out and do the things that we want to do and not feel bad about spending that money. Now, this is all while keeping that income limit at 60,000. So the 57,000 plus the 171 a month that I receive from the VA, it's going to put us just over $59,000 for the year. But by increasing our income by that $270 a month, we're going to be able to live life a little bit easier. Please keep in mind, this series is not meant to be a brag on being able to live on less than $60,000 a year. That is not the point. My hope for this series is that it can help motivate you to dig into your finances, especially if you know some dude on the internet is just willingly putting his information out on a monthly basis. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If this video or any of the other videos that I've put out has provided you value, then hit that subscribe button. If you know someone that's wanting to turn their finances around, then send this video to them. Maybe it'll help motivate them as well. But I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.